All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm back from my Division 2 break. For those of you who do not know, once in a while I'll take a break from the Division 2, a week, sometimes a week and a few days, sometimes a weekend. I just don't touch the game at all. So what I'll do is I'll make a series of videos discussing different topics that I find while playing the game, things that are interesting to me, things that I want to find out, or I'll write down the ideas and then I'll schedule those videos so I can have the community just talking about those issues. And I'll be heavily invested in just chatting up people, replying to comments, putting a heart on comments and reading them over the course of that time, but I will not touch the game. This is how I've learned to prevent burnout. Because one thing about the division is if you constantly just grind and you get tired and you try to go back in, there'll be a weird taste that it leaves in your mouth. It's so strange when you go in when you're already worn out of the game and when things are just kind of all over the place and you try to log back in, it will do something really weird to your psyche, which in many cases have led people to just log in and then immediately just delete the game. Like they don't even bother logging out. They just hit that home button on their consoles and go delete. In some cases, they'll do the exact same thing on PC. Just hit escape, hit the command, okay, uninstall, because the game can really wear you out. And one of the things I wanted to say in this video is there is no perfect game. And I know this, like I was talking in my last video at the tail end, I foolishly, got upset at, I think it was an input lag with Mortal Kombat 11. And one thing about the game is, you know how video games are. You have a 1000 HP health pool. If you make a mistake, it can cost you 300 HP. I mean, that's basically, you need 3 major mistakes to lose the game, basically. Except you have a major comeback and the person makes a huge mistake. So I'm blocking low. You hold down the right trigger, that's Mortal Kombat command for block, and you hold the down button. When somebody knocks you down and you're about to wake up, apparently there's a weird lag window where your block does not register, and it's happened to me probably 100 times. For those of you who do not know what my record on Mortal Kombat 11 is, check my gamer tags on Mortal Kombat 11. In fact, I have a second account that I play on PlayStation. I'll give you that account so that you can actually check those stats and check my Steam stats. I have more playtime on Mortal Kombat 11 than I do on the Division 2. It's crazy. That's how much I actually go there and get away from the Division 2 when the Division 2 is making me, dry heave. And as that just happened, I just lost every level of decorum that I had. And this was before dawn. I woke up very early to get some work done, get some videos done, get some missions in. And I just said, let me play this 5 daily games and just kind of, check off the box on some daily challenge. And boy, that got under my skin. And before you know, my controller, just could not hold itself together anymore. And before you know, there is PlayStation signs, right trigger in the bathroom. I mean, it wasn't even funny. Good thing I didn't toss it at the TV. I have learned not to toss anything at the TV after FIFA actually made me hit my phone, and then my phone rolled, bounced, and then hit the TV, and I lost the TV as well. So video games have made many of us frustrated. And in this frustration, many of us have either quit the game or we've just, taken a break and gone back to those games and said, let me just get a little perspective because I feel like I want something to happen here and it's just not happening in the digital world. Some of you are, you exercise more self-control and, if something like that happens, you just put your controller down and you walk away and go cook or something productive. But this video is not just to talk about these things, but just to show that even though the Division 2 may have its problems, I think where our biggest issue might be is, the nature of the game and the nature of the community relations with the developers. So let me describe it this way. So Destiny and Warframe, these two games have community discussions. In fact, Warframe is actually so big, they have their own event called TennoCon. I mean, it's crazy for a free to play game in a sense. They have something that big. And I think Tom Clancy's Division wanted to kind of adopt that kind, of communication with the community to continue to see what it looks like. Well, with Ubisoft's business model, I don't think that's actually compatible, to be very honest. I think the State of the Game initiative came from a place of maybe sincerity. Maybe it came from a place where they wanted to try to salvage their community so that they could sell the Division 2. Because remember, when the Division 1 dropped and it was like, oh crap, we sold all this game copies, but now our community is mad at us. That's basically how I think the state of the game started. We got to keep them engaged while we're cooking up the Division 2, because they said that basically a month or 2 months after Division 1 was released, they pulled the team aside to start making a sequel, because Ubisoft sold. That was their, I think, fastest selling game in the entire Ubisoft history, the Division 1. And so while they were doing that, this State of the Game initiative came out. They were doing patches, adding content, doing all those things to keep the community engaged while they cooked up this Division 2 game. But Ubisoft does not have that kind of model to keep its community, fully and all in an all-round and holistic way satisfied with the way they do things. First of all, they're very secretive. They just don't tell, they don't say things when the right time is to be said. They usually want to say things at their own time. By then, they end up losing a lot of faith in their community. Even when they finally say what needs to be said, they say it down the road, and a lot of people lose, basically trust. Some people lose confidence. Some people lose interest in whatever it is that they're doing. This is the trend and the pattern that I've seen for so many years. And then another thing too is a lot of the things that they've said have just been straight up inaccurate. Sometimes they are considered lies outrightly. Now, I understand that circumstances may change. They say one thing, and then they go ahead and they change things up later down the road. I think the best way to route those things is to actually go back and acknowledge what was earlier said. And they need to do it in a way that if it actually, appeals to the community or makes sense to the community, then they can say, okay. But if it doesn't, then I think they need to still go back and do right by their community and hold down the things that they've actually said before. Example, the raid, this so-called Foundry raid that we're all waiting for, was supposed to be a thing in year 1. They said it was going to come out year 1. And then all of a sudden they just said, we don't have any information about the raid anymore. It's going to come at a future date. We're going to announce it when it comes. Well, why? Well, they left the community to do conjecture, and people said, well, the ETF went there and played it, and they said it wasn't really that good, so they took it back into the whatever. Well, why didn't they just tell their community that? The community would have gained a little bit more respect for them to say, well, if you guys said it didn't really sit right, then perhaps maybe you guys need to take your time. Cyberpunk delayed an entire game all the way from April to September and gained a lot of community support. Even though people were saying, this is a little, hurtful for us. We pre-ordered. We were really excited about this. It's probably okay for us to be able to wait. And people are still waiting till date for that game to finally get its kinks together and be released. Game studios usually gain a lot more respect when they take the time to say we want to make the product satisfactory, and when they actually communicate that to their fan base. It's just like if Cyberpunk had said, no, they need to communicate that and say this is exactly what's going on. Now, for Cyberpunk, granted, they didn't give the full details, but it's something that we eventually found out. But, we all know how CD Projekt Red is. They kind of take their time to do things, so there's a lot more trust and confidence by many people in the gaming, environment towards CD Projekt Red than Ubisoft will ever dream. I mean, even as a fan of how Ubisoft does their games, I will still tell you that the company has a lot of PR issues. And then another example, too, that we also have to look at is matchmaking. When the game was first advertised, they talked about matchmaking being available in every activity. But then when they brought out the first raid, and I know many people may disagree with me on this, but when they brought out the first raid, they removed the matchmaking, and then the community said, yo, you said there was going to be matchmaking in your activities. They came back and they said, well, the matchmaking, we feel like it's not going to allow for players to be able to achieve, a lot of things in the raid. We want people to go to LFG groups and all these other places. To be honest, I thought that was a very crappy move, because at the end of the day, I've been to LFG groups that we have not beat. We've not even gotten to the half part of Boomer's Health. And I've gotten on pickup groups just in the server chat. Like, anybody want to raid? And we've beaten a raid together. Basically, just find people randomly and we've come together, we've communicated. If somebody didn't have a mic, we said, yo, we need you to have a mic. If you don't have a mic, the group leader decides if we want to keep the person or if we want to, kick the person. This is the way the community has always been able to govern itself over the course of the Division 1, even through hard missions. And then when people finally, raised a lot of storm and said, fulfill what you promised, they went ahead and made a discovery version of the raid, which does not grant the rewards or the blueprints or the possible loot that has been locked behind this raid for over one whole calendar year. This is why Ubisoft is having a lot of PR problems with the Division 2. It's because the development team, even though we as gamers understand that there's no perfect game, sometimes they make it very difficult for us. And I'm saying this because I understand that, the Division game is the game that I've basically bet my YouTube channel on for the last 4 years or so. And I can say with all calm in my mind that I will give this game, its props whenever I know that there are aspects of the game to be given props, but there are also aspects that I feel like, man, this game needs to wake up and understand the amount of potential that it holds. It really does hold a lot of potential. I mean, it's crazy, but there's so many things they can do with this game and take it to a whole different level and keep it relevant. But because of, like I said, the way they kind of, follow through on things that they do, or the way they don't follow through, can be a big stumbling block with this particular game. Then the final aspect of this video is, I've seen a lot of people talk about, well, Massive needs to be fired, and Ubisoft needs to find another studio, somebody else needs to come in and do the Division 2. And I sigh and I say, that is not how I have read or understand video game development to work. A lot of what's been done so far with the Division 2, that you have to admit, is the game is one of the best looking games in this genre, in this space. I don't know of any MMO that looks as beautiful, aesthetically pleasing, eye candy as the Division does. Now, you probably argue with me if you're playing on a different platform, but if you come play on PC or look at the graphics, even on PlayStation, I have it on PlayStation 4, I can still tell you that this game is just pretty to look at. But that's not all a game needs to be judged by, because there's another pretty to look at game that's going to be coming out in June that has the whole gaming community literally split in half. And if you think about that, getting a new development team to do the game is an unrealistic expectation. There have been years and years of investment with the current team, the current idea holders, the current designers, that have been working on this project for a while. Even if you think about it, many of them have provided valuable insight, because yes, as much as we may hound a lot of the designers and the developers, there have been times where they have exhibited some strokes of excellence, be it whatever you want to call it, whether by luck or whether by their intuition or their skill or their ability to be able to get things done. At the same time, you have to think about, if that was harnessed very well, then there might have been a better game all the way, from the start of this entire franchise. Another thing too you have to think about is leadership. I've said this many times. I think Massive has a leadership struggle going on. I don't know how their leadership structure is. I don't know who calls the shots. I've never researched them, and I don't want to research them, honestly. I don't care. But we can tell from a lot of the things that go on, there's most likely, somewhere at the top of the chain where something just ain't sitting right. And that's where we as the community get to see a lot of the discrepancies that go on within the game. Nonetheless, as imperfect as the game is, I still like the game. I'll still throw my support behind it, because like I've said in the beginning of this video, there is no perfect game. If there was a perfect game, I would probably be playing it. However, if there was a perfect game that I liked, I'd probably be playing it myself. So that's basically my video. It's a discussion about, the nature of our game, the nature of the development team, and the nature of the community. I hope that you guys, have something to add in the comment section. Let me know. Let me hear your thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next video.